live on stage. The sound
of Orlando.
So, if they ready, the sound
of Orlando. You know. What is going on, party people? What is going on, man? Glad to have you guys on a Friday night, man. We're ending the week off strong. Shout out to all my peoples from all over Orlando. When I told you guys, man, we are trying to bring you the story of Orlando in the most honest way, without any kind of, favor towards one, towards the other. We're trying to tell the story as it has been told from the beginning, right? So one thing I noticed when I got back from Kansas City, Missouri, shout out to all my Kansas City people, man, who know what time it is, right? Shout out to you. When I came back from Kansas City, I just noticed, man, there was a deficit. When nobody talking about our story in the way I seen other cities, celebrating their history. Even if it was a small town, they were celebrating their history. Kansas City is one of those towns that celebrates their history. They talk about their people. Tech Nine is a god. Nelly is a god in Missouri, and they talk about them. They talk about what they've been up to all these years. And even though they're not still on the charts, they continue to highlight and celebrate the contributions of their own. So when I came back, man, I was like, bro, we need something like this. We need something in which we can discuss our people and come at it from a neutral perspective, meaning allow these people to tell their story for what it is, why not? I mean, there's so many people. Yeah, you come here, maybe you come here for 6 months and you bounce because you're from another town. But what about the people that have been here from day one? Where the hell is their advocates at? Who's speaking up for them? Are they the ones saying that everybody's not relevant anymore to be talked about? Is that what we're doing? Well, no, that's not what we're doing. In 2021, bro, the Sound of Orlando show recognizes not only the people that are doing something right now, but the people that everyone can thank for being the ones that opened the doors, that did all the hard work, that toiled the land, and made this city, what it's becoming. They did all the hard work. So this next guest that I'm bringing on tonight, man, represents that story. We're talking about DJ Magic Mike, Cheetah Records, and that contribution into what we know today as one of the few people from the gate, from the door, that represented Old Town sound. Like when you seen that Royal Posse and that Magic Mike, they were all representing Orlando to the fullest. That album cover was so important for the city. That contribution from Cheetah Records was so important for the city. They're one of the few people, that we could say that represented the city from the beginning and that went platinum. First people in Old Town to go platinum. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying, man? I mean, that is just amazing. So once again, it's Friday night and we talking about our city, man. So without further ado, let me bring on the brother that contributed to one of Old Town's greatest legacies, DJ Magic Mike and the Royal Posse. My man, my brother representing Old Town sound, MC Boo. Let's go. What's good, homie?
What's good, man? How you doing?
What's good, my brother? What is good? Man, so glad to have you on the show. We couldn't find another brother that couldn't represent O-Town the way you guys represented O-Town, man. And it's straight from Orlando, straight up. Like there's, Catalina, Memorial. I mean, that's as Orlando as you get.
The heart of Orlando.
The heart of Orlando, my brother. Rio Grande. So Grande, man, come on, man. Texas Ave, man, come on, man.
I come from Lakeside.
Lakeside. Talk about it.
Yeah.
And we need that, man. We need that representation.
Definitely we need it.
You're framing a little bit, man. So welcome to the show, MC Boo. Before we get in,
it's like it's lagging behind.
You kind of coming in and out, brother. You good?
Yeah, I mean, my signal's strong, but it's like it's lagging. It's like it's lagging in and out. It's behind. It's like a delay.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to work with it the best way we can. Let's try to work with it the best way we can. You hear me? Are we good?
Yeah, I hear you. You're perfect.
Okay. Before we start talking about the present, let's go back in the past a little bit and talk about what brought you to hip hop. Because when we're talking about the contributions of O-Town to the world, you were a part of some magnificent projects. Talk about what led you to rhyming and coming into this thing we call hip hop from the beginning. Talk about that. Where you from, and then how you got into hip hop music. Talk about that.
Okay, I grew up in a neighborhood that we call Lakeside, but it's known as Johnson Village. The official name is Johnson Village, but the part of Johnson Village that I grew up in, we call Lakeside. It's right behind Merchants and Terrace Projects, which the streets is known as Motown.
So Motown, brother, talk about it, man. Motown, let's go.
Exactly. So I actually got into hip hop. And that was by accident. A friend of I call him my cousin. He ain't really my cousin, but we grew up. My mother and his mother were close friends. Jason Jones. I always hung around older people. And so Jason was like an older cousin to me. So he came over to my house one day. He stayed over in Richmond Heights. And he rode his bike over my house. I mean, we gotta be like 12. I gotta be like 12, 11, somewhere around there. And so he comes over to my house and he like, yo, let's ride our bike. So we ride the bike, and he want to stop by his homeboy Didi house. Didi was my first DJ, and I bumped it and met him like that. And his name was Damian Williams. So he wanted to stop by Didi's house and see what was going on. So when I get in Didi's house, there's another guy there named Andre Williams, and he called himself Prince CMD. And they were rapping. Didi had the whole DJ set up back in his room. He was the only child, so his mama kind of spoiled. And I'm back in the room, and he had his own, he had the DJ set up. And I was like, dang, so Andre, them, they were rapping. And so, they was like, hey, you want to get in on something? I was like, wait, I don't care what I get involved in. in my mind, I always say, yeah, I could do it. You know, I mean, it don't seem that hard. So I picked up the pen and the paper. That day we sat back in DD room and we wrote a couple of songs. We started recording demo tapes. After that, I started going over DD's house, you know, like on a daily basis after school. And we started making a couple of demo tapes. By this time, Prince Raheem staying over in Richmond Heights. And,
shout out to Prince Raheem, man. Shout out to Prince Raheem.
Yeah. Didi was telling me, like, yo, you know, I know Raheem, I got to connect with Raheem, and they here locally, but he wasn't Mike. Central Florida, he was DJ Magic Mike at that particular time, and he brought Raheem down with him to Miami when he had hooked up with Clay D, and you know, and then they started pumping out hits, Creek Dog, Boot the Booty, Don't Let Your Rag Top Drop. You know, they was pumping them out at that particular time. So he was like, I ran into Prince Raheem, and you know, I think he gonna get us an audition with Mike. You know, he heard the demo tapes, Blase Squaze. So at this time, I'm thinking Mike's still with Clay D. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, bet. You know, I'm all excited. Like, okay. You know, like I say, Mike was a local celebrity here going.
Yo, you pressed mute by accident. Yo, unmute it.
And I sent it to the answer machine. So I guess it hit mute at the same time. But where did it stop? I'm not sure what part that you didn't hear. What was the last?
Yeah, go back about a few sentences back. Go back a few sentences back.
All right.
Continue.
All right. So anyway, like I was saying, D telling me like, yo, I got to hook up with Raheem, and Raheem's gonna, you know, set us up a audition with Magic Mike. So I'm like, bet, you know, because like I was saying, Magic Mike was a local celebrity here, going back to Electric Avenue, the club Electric Avenue for me. But I think
shout out to Electric Avenue. Shout out to Electric Avenue, man.
The New York Times with older with some of the older hip hop heads. So
another shout out, New York Times.
But by the time we get ready to do the interview, the audition, Raheem and Mike had split because Mike had split from Clay D, and so I guess, you know, Raheem had to choose, and I guess he couldn't see the future, and Mike, he could only see the right now, and so he stayed behind with Clay D. And so now we kind of shook because you know, that was our ticket in, and he done left. But then Willie Wiz, who was managing Mike at the time, reached out to Didi and and reset it up. Mike was looking for, because at that time Luke had LaJuan Love, so Mike wanted, you know, a little youngster in his clique too. So he was looking he wanted a youngster in the clique anyway because of LaJuan Love. You know, that everybody say, yeah. So
shout out to LaJuan Love. I had Mr. Mix on last night. And he was just telling me about that LaJuan Love and how he produced LaJuan Love, and to everybody that don't know about LaJuan Love, he did one album, but that production on that album was hard, and that little dude was just doing what he could to just to flow on that. So talk about it, my brother. Continue.
Right. So, you know, Wiz reached out and set the audition up. At that particular time, what Mike was doing to sustain himself, he was going out doing parties that, like, he was renting out, like the Rec Center, James R. Smith Center. He rent out the Rec Center. He did a lot of stuff like out in Groveland. And so they had rented a hotel ballroom to throw a party, the Royal Party. And we had to meet him at this hotel ballroom. So we go out there, and Dee Dee is right before the little dance. And Dee Dee, I remember Dee Dee getting on the turntables, you know what I'm saying, doing his thing to audition. And then, you know, I auditioned. And so I think it was maybe like a few days later, because Dee Dee was really the one who was in contact with him.
Right.
Dee Dee reached out to me. He was like, yo, man, I heard from Wiz, man, but like, I don't think they want me, but they want you in the group. So I was like, no. So I felt kind of conflicted because, you know, he was one, how I got in the door. I mean, he was one who, you know, sparked my interest in it. But he was like, yo, man, because at first I was like, nah, man, I'm straight. I ain't gonna do it. They don't want, you know, they don't want you then, you know. But he was like, yo, I ain't gonna hold you back, man. You know, it's your opportunity. You know what I'm saying? They want you, so just gonna do your thing. So once I hooked up with Mike assured me that, yo, I got a DJ for you. And he introduced me to Ray Swift. I don't know if you know DJ Ray Swift.
Oh, my man. Ray Swift, he gonna be on next week, man. Come on, man. Dog. My man Ray. Let's go.
So he put me up on Ray. He was like, yo, this gonna be your DJ. And that's what it was. So I mean, like I tell a lot of people, a lot of stuff that the young cats doing with these cliques and stuff, like you hear the Royal Posse, we had that. You get Cash Money. We was doing that way back then. We used to have meetings because Mike stayed over in Richmond Heights off of Ravenna all at that time. But his grandmother owned a lot of property, actually. And one of the pieces of property she owned was in another location in Richmond Heights. So we go over to that location and have meetings on the porch. You know, it was me, a guy named Eric Reed from Pine Hills. We used to call him Raw G. It was Keith Austin. His mother was actually, at the time, the president of the Orlando Urban League. And his father worked out at Martin Marietta. So Keith was like a little spoiled kid who was rebelling at the time. But I remember walking into Keith's house and you know, she was the night in the Pips, and they would loan her their American Music Awards and Grammys. So you walk in there, you know, they just let her hold them on loan to her in the house. So you walk in there, and you know, they had them on display. So meeting Keith is one thing that motivated me too, because to walk into Keith's house and it's like, oh yeah, you know, because the Pips, I think they own Borden's Milk, and it was a Borden's Milk plant here, right where the Mears bus station is, with across from Jones. That was like a Borden's or some milk. It was a milk thing, and the Pips had something to do with that. So that's the reason why they were always in town. And you just to walk into Keith's house, right there off of Good Homes Road, and you could pick up American Music Award or Grammy and hold it in your hand. You know, that was another thing that was motivating. But like I was saying, we'd have meetings out at Mike's house, grandmother's house, on just the structure of the group. I mean, we were organized. Each group that was in, because the Royal Posse was made up of a few different groups. So each group was responsible for paying for they demo tape. by this time I was hitting, like I told you earlier, we were the last year of junior high and the first year of middle school. So by the time I got to junior high school, I remember that summer, I got a job. I think it's the city program. It was one of them programs where they jobs the teams babysitting us, but we my mom would drop me off in the mornings downtown Orlando, and I'd go in to the office building. You know, they had like a little desk up in the back, and I was supposed to be entering numbers from off these papers in the computer. They were basically babysitting and trying to teach us, you know, what life was really gonna be like. But that's how I paid for my demo tape. I remember it was a guy by the name of Leroy. I don't remember his whole name, but he had a little pre-production studio over off of in Pine Hills, off of Pine Hills Road. And each one of us went there and made demo tapes. And I remember walking in, because I had been telling Mike, like, yo, see, I'm gonna tell you something. Back in them days, New York used to hate on Southern hip hop. They called it booty music. So I think Mike splitting with Clay D, I think, and Clay D was the epitome of bass music. I think they kind of left a nasty taste in his mouth. Plus, you know what I'm saying, the New York rappers were the biggest at the time. So you kind of wanted to be the Pete Rock and CL Smooth and things like that. But they used to hate. So I remember having a meeting out just before we did the demo tape. We had Mike's grandmother's house having a meeting. And we trying to decide on which style of music we were going to do. And everybody was like, man, bass music dead. Everybody was out there was trying to, you know, swing over to the New York style of hip hop, because all the New York rappers was hating on what was coming out of the South. And I was the only one on that porch who said, man, forget that. I'm doing bass music. I'm from the South. You know what I'm saying? I like with Luke and everybody. I was the only one out on that porch who said that. I mean, Mike, everybody was like, they wanted trying to shift over to the New York thing. So to get back to, we go do the demo tape. I'm the only one who do a bass song. Everybody else trying to do, and then I guess Mike did Magic Mike cuss the record that night. So you know, that's a bass song too. But that was the only, you know, because at that particular time, Eric's name was QS Lamar back then, not Raw G. He later changed it a few years later. But that was Mike's rapper. Eric was Mike's rapper. So they were all doing the New York thing. You know what I'm saying? I was the only one on the bass thing, but I was telling Mike, I was working the little summer program, and I was telling Mike, like, man, I got a song in my head that I keep hearing called Drop the Bass. And how it actually came to me was I was with my homeboys and Sugar. I don't know if you remember Sugar, who from Richmond Heights, who had all the bass in the little black car. He was the first one in Orlando as far as in the hood with Get Down. His name was Sugar. He done died. Nah, he done had a heart attack. But he came through bamming. And, you know, we was like, man, Sugar be dropping that bass, boy, you know. And so that's how the song came about. It actually came from Sugar riding through with that Get Down in his car. And so I kept telling Mike, yo, I got a song in my head I want to do called Drop the Bass. So Mike was like, okay, bet.
Hold up, boo. You just dropped some breaking news on Orlando for the people that don't know the story behind Drop That Bass, bro. Like, I can't even believe what you just said. Let's talk about it. Breaking news from MC Boo. Let's go.
Hey, yo.
Breaking news.
Turn this motherfucking sound up, man. Blast this is control to hold this up.
I was aware of It had
Talk about no. Talk about how you
people,
just came up with that. Drop that bass.
18.
Talk about how you just came up with that. Drop that
out
bass.
On the corner. We were hanging out and Sugar rode by in that little black. I don't know if it was a Mazda. It was a little black small car Sugar had. I remember he had like 4 18s and he serious get down. It was a little small black. And he just came by. Everything was shaking, and everybody who I was, who we was hanging out with, was like, "Well, Sugar be dropping that bass, but that Sugar got that get down." And that's where it came from. And I was like, man, I'm gonna do a song called Drop the Bass. It was inspired by Sugar. And so I went to Mike and I told Mike, I said, yo, I keep hearing a song in my head called Drop the Bass, man. I need you to do me a beat.
What?
So Mike was like, bet. So one day I came, I stopped by his house. LaJuan Love's debut album had just came out. I had went to the Platter Shack and bought the album. And
shout out to the Platter Shack. Let's go.
And, I had stopped at the Platter Shack, bought LaJuan Love's debut album, and went over to Mike's house. And Mike was like, yo, that's LaJuan Love album. He hadn't heard it yet. You know what I'm saying? So he asked me, could he open up the album and check it out? So I was like, yeah. And once he finished checking it out, he came back. He was like, yo, I did that track for you. And at that particular time, Mike had an 808 in the house. And so I came back. He bought the 808 drum machine out in the living room and played the beat, and it was banging. I was like, wow, I was excited. I was like, boy, I got to go add some more stuff. You know what I'm saying? So he made me a tape of the song. I went home, and we got ready to do the demo tape. When we got to the studio, I had 2 songs prepared. A song called We're on a Mission, which is on the Royal Parsons album, and Drop the Bass. We're on a mission because, like I said, everybody was trying to push the New York thing. So We're on a Mission was kind of geared towards that, to say, okay, I can do that too. You know what I'm saying? But the bass music is where my heart is.
Right.
So when we got in Leroy's studio, he had an SP12. And Mike was like, yo, he wanted to do the song all over. And I was like, why? He was like, this drum machine right here make tone bass, man. So he got to telling me, this is how we made Creep Dog and all of that. So I was like, man, you're a kid. Your mind set on one thing. I really liked the first beat. I was like, man, so he redid it right there on the spot. And I was like, when we did it, he redid it right there on the spot. And so I went and recorded it, and we came out. To be quite honest, that's why I tell people you don't know, especially in the music business, what's going to be a success. Sometimes when you don't like something, everybody else in the whole world love it. If
Right. Man. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, brother. So glad you said that. You don't know what's a hit.
Yeah, because
you don't know what's
if
a
I
hit.
had to choose between the 808 version and SP12 version, I would have chose the 808 version every time. But of course, that's what it was. So we recorded the song. Mike put the demo tape together.
Stop right there, my dude. Stop right there. Talk about, because there's a rumor, and I don't know how great that rumor is, that Magic Mike had like a chain of SB12s. Like he had like 5, 10 of them or whatever the number is. He had them all synced up. Talk about Magic Mike and that SB12, period. Did he have that chain of SB12?
Well, I mean, as time went on and money came in, Mike had a whole lot of music equipment. But when I first met him, the only thing that I was aware of that he had, and the most stuff that he did work off of, was the 808 drum machine. He probably still got Mike like a pack right. I mean, he was in the Orlando Sentinel years ago. They did a story on his music room. I mean, it's records from ceiling to floor. Like, I mean, records from ceiling. I listen to lots like Steely Dan and stuff like that. People ask me, man, where you got the taste for that? If you sit around Magic Mike, you gonna listen to sometimes elevator. What you think of is elevator music. I mean, he like off the wall, like he listen to stuff like that. I mean, you be riding in the car and he won't listen to one hip hop song. He'll be playing Steely Dan and all day long. You know, that's who he is. So, like you can walk in his room. Like I say, he was in the Orlando Center. You probably can research that. His music room records from ceiling to floor, all four walls. And once money started coming in, he did an addition onto the back of the house, and so the record collection grew. He got serious records, man, like serious records. The hip hop industry back then was built off of samples, so that's how they would go. He got serious records. But no, when I met him, he just had the 808. And Leroy had the SP12.
Yeah.
So like I said, we recorded, we did the demo tapes, we packaged the demo tapes, and Mike sent them out to all the major labels. And all of them sent back rejection letters. I never forget sitting in the meeting, because a few meetings had went by, and everybody like, dang, man, he heard nothing about them demo tapes we sent. Ain't nobody. And finally, Mike said, man, I ain't want to tell y'all, because I ain't want to, I want to keep y'all motivated. But everybody sent back rejection letters. So one day, Mike stepped to me. He was like, yo, I'm finna sign this deal. He had met this white dude named Tom Wright. And he was like, yo, I think I'm going to do something with Tom. And he had offered to me, did I want to go? But the plan for me was to always be with Luke Scott. So I wasn't even studying the major labels that they were sending out to, because the whole plan for me was to sign with Luke Skywalker Records, and Mike them wanted to get with the major thing. So I wasn't really studying, Cheetah Records. I was like, okay, well, I help you out, but that was the plan, that was the thought. Luke Skywalker Records. So Mike them, they put out Catch Me If You Can, which is like a New York version, Florida New York version. I'll put it that way. He put out Catch Me If You Can, and on the B side was Magic Mike Cuts the Record, and but Magic Mike Cuts the Record started gaining a little traction. You know what I'm saying? And then at some point, Tom had met this Arab guy out of Canada named Taneen Ali, who owned Sizzle Records, which was like a major independent out of Canada. And so, he had got a distribution deal for Cheetah with them. So we going around and we doing shows off of, Magic Mike Cuts the Record and Catch Me If You Can. Like I say, Magic Mike Cuts the Record, the bass song is just ironic because all of them, was like against bass music, but the one of the two bass songs that we had, Magic Mike Cuts the Record, had started gaining a little traction. So
yeah,
I remember being down in Miami, and we did a show, and it was like the next day, and Mike was like, "Yo, man, Taneen, I had played Taneen your demo tape, and Taneen he want to put out the song." So I was like, man, I was kind of disappointed. At that particular time, Mike was the man, so you don't want to disappoint Mike either. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, well, screw it. But I'm gonna tell you how I knew Drop Bass was gonna be large. I kind of skipped this part. After we did, remember I said I didn't like the song, but after we did the demo tape, I let a cousin of mine hold the demo tape. he in turn gave it to another DJ out of Richmond Heights named Walt. I forget Walt's last name, but Walt used to make mixtapes, and and he put sound in people's cars and all of that. And Walt put it on a mixtape, and Dave and in his yard, I never forget it. And somebody came by, bamming the song, doom 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 doom. So he was like, "What the fuck?" He was like, "Man, that's our song." So we stopped the dude, and we asked him, "Hey man, where you get this song from?" And he was like, "Oh, is this a Walt tape?" Walt was putting it on the tape. Everybody on the tape. So Mike was like, Mike was like, "Man, see, I told you, man. No, you know what I'm saying? Now you might be done messed up. You know what I'm saying?" So, but this was, in between that time that we were in Miami, he come to me about Sizzle. It was months, but I knew right then. I was like, "Well, dang, we might have some on our hand," because people was bumping it like way before we put it out on wax. People was already bumping.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now getting back to when we in Miami, so he telling me he let Taneen hear the song, and Taneen want to put the song out. So we finally decided to go ahead and put the song out. And when I'm telling you, when we put the song out, the song took flight. It took flight. I mean, from the rip. I mean, it just took flight. And I mean, people even made a dance up off of it. I mean, it just took flight. And
and I'm
doing shows.
It took flight. Like, I remember that record. It felt like when it came out, it was playing every 5-10 minutes. And I couldn't believe it because it was just like, I mean, the radio was supporting it out here. And those were the good old days when radio actually played.
The first radio station to jump on here in Orlando. Now it started, the catch on started in Miami. But
right.
The first radio station in Orlando to jump on it was Y106.
Y106. Talk about it, my brother. Yes.
Yeah, the first time I heard it on the radio was Y106. Now, once, of course, God bless the dead. Once my fellow Tiger and top DJ at 102 Jams, Bartell, yes. He put it in heavy rotation. But the first market for it to break in was in Miami, actually.
Right.
But like I said, once we put it out, we doing shows everywhere. One of the first biggest shows I did was actually here at the Orlando Fairgrounds with Salt and Pepper. That Push It video was filmed at the fairgrounds.
Oh, wait, say that one more time for the people that don't know about that, man. What was the Push It video filmed at?
Yeah, the Push It video was filmed at the fairgrounds, at the Orlando Fairgrounds, and here in Orlando. So
what?
I can't, we I would saw like the first big stars that I actually mingled with, like hung at Salt. It was Salt and Pepper Spinderella, and we chopped it up, and I actually felt like I'm here now. So I remember we were supposed to have got paid, and because up until this point, everything we doing is promo, nothing. We just out here, just doing promos. You know what I'm saying? So I remember this promoter by the Nat Harry that promoted the concerts. And so we asked Mike, like, yo, what's up with the money? So Mike, like, man, Fat Harry ain't paid us this, that, and other. But they
Fat Harry was one of the biggest concert promoters in Orlando. Like he ran. If it didn't go through Fat Harry,
he did a lot of stuff everywhere. Fat Harry,
yeah,
over the state.
Yep.
Yeah, Fat Harry was huge. So we, you know, we beef about the money, so we get on stage. So in the middle of the set, I'm hot. The whole time I'm thinking about the money. You know what I'm saying? So in the middle of the set, I stop and I'm like, yo, Mike, man, fuck this. You know, this motherfucker ain't paid us, this, that, and the other. So I'm like, Town, what's up? How the fuck we gonna let this motherfucker Salt-N-Pepa done got paid? You know what I'm saying? How we gonna let this motherfucker, next thing I know, bro, when I tell you the whole crowd rush Fat Harry, you gotta be talking about 3, 4, 5,000. Look at the Salt-N-Pepa video and look at all the people. You gotta be talking about like 3, 4, 5,000 people start chasing this man. Hey, they started chasing it. They beat the shit out of Fat Harry right here. And then Mike kind of laughed later on. Yeah, we kind of laughed about that later on in life. But back then, Mike was hot. Like, man, Fat Harry said he ain't gonna book us on no more shows because of you, this, that. And I was like, fuck that. You should have paid us anyway. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, later on, you know, me and Mike brought it up. I brought it up to him because I was like, we passed the statute of limitations. Now, so I kind of incited a riot because I was like, yo, man, this dude ain't paid us, this, that, and the other. And they rushed Fat Harry, you know what I'm saying, and got down on his ass. Then, you know, went on to do Jam Fest, and that was like a sea of people, like a sea of people. I remember, you know, just mixing and mingling with some huge stars, but it just took flight, man. The song just took flight, and so now I'm arguing with my mama. Mind you, I'm skipping school, you know, going to the studio here, skipping school, going to do a show here. I'm arguing with my mama about this because back then hip hop was in its infancy. So, you know, the older people thinking like it's gonna last. You know, my mama thinking like, man, this is just a fad, you know, this, that, and the other. And, you know, they thinking hip hop as a whole gonna fade out. And so my mama really beefing at this point. You know what I'm saying? So she saying, well, God, you know where the money at? You know what I mean? Y'all, you supposed to have this. I mean, the song was so big that her boss, my mother was a housekeeper, and she worked for an orthodontist, a very wealthy orthodontist by the name of Dr. Carl Dan III. I mean, he hung out with federal judges, that type. Tony wouldn't do it because Tony was like, y'all, man, that's Boo song. You know what I'm saying? I ain't touching that, this, that, and the other. You know, he stepped to Madness, and Madness had that attitude. I don't know him like that. You know, that's your homeboy. Boom. So they did. So when I talk to people, and people always, you know, a lot of people remember the second version more so than the first version. But like I tell them, the song had already took flight. At that point, you could have put Mr. Potato Head on the song. You know what I'm saying? And it was gonna do what it do. I mean, that's just what it is. It had already took flight when Madness got on the song, and so that's what it was. But yeah, so Tony, they were going back and forth. So finally, Madness said he was gonna do it. And you know, later in life, I never knew. Even though when me and Madness would see each other after that and passing, you know, I was always cordial because I ain't gonna hate on nobody hustle. I mean, that's your thing. You know, that's really, you know, Mike should have, you know, handled it a different way. But I was always cordial with him when I saw him. But I remember I was going to come through Miami one time. So I had called him. I was like, yo, I was working a job and it was mobile. And I was like, yo, I'm trying to save this money on this hotel. By this time, Madness had to transition into trucking as well. He was driving trucks. So I was like, yo, I'm going to come through and crash at your house. I'm trying to save this cash. I don't want to get no hotel room. And I was just shocked. He was like, nah, he started giving me all kind of excuses about, and we had bumped into each other between Tony many times in the past And I was like, yo, man, this crashed at his house. So later on, after, because you know Madness got killed in a car wreck quite a few years back. So later on, me and Tony talking, I saw him, and I'm telling him what happened. And so finally, he tells me, you know, he's like, well, you know why he probably did that? Because he always felt some type of way about, you know, the song. Like he had beef with me about my song, about him doing my song. That was just, I could never get over that, you know, understanding how you feel some type of way towards me because you decided to jump on my song and do my song. And even after you did it, I still showed you love. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never disrespect you. But yeah, he ended up feeling some type of way with me over my song. So it is what it is. But yeah, that's how that went. And I left and eventually ended up hooking up with Dominique and Kenny Thames out of Winter Garden. Two of the biggest dope boys in Orlando at that particular time, in Central Florida. Ended up, we started Deja Records. And, you know, like I told Mike at one time, I firmly believe, I'm not religious, but I believe in a supreme being, and I believe every person you meet for a reason. And like I tell Mike, had you not met me, most likely wouldn't be the king of bass, because everybody on that porch was talking New York. They want to be a New York rapper. I was the only one pushing bass music. So if I'm not there, you probably veer off into the New York thing, and who knows if you, because believe it or not, at one time there wasn't a hip hop artist that was as big as Magic Mike, and he was a DJ. I mean, Mike was as big as, I mean, Eric B. and Rocky, and he was coming off an independent label. He was one of the biggest. I mean, you can walk in Mike's music room. A lot of times I share the music, you know, all the plaques and stuff from his wall. And you'd be amazed at all the platinum. Because after the Royal Posse album, it was just platinum plaque after platinum plaque after platinum plaque. You know, and ain't like Mike just got one platinum album. Now, the one thing I will say, Mike was good at what he did. And that's, you couldn't take away from him producing. And I really feel like he should be one of the, I mean, he should be one of the top DJs right now. I mean, like, when you see Mike in action as a show DJ, it's very few DJs that I've encountered that can even, you know, stand shoulder to shoulder with Mike. I mean, Jazzy Jeff, Mr. Mix was nice, but I don't think Mr. Mix on Mike level. But like DJ Jazzy Jeff and his cousin DJ Scratch from EPMD, them the only two I can think of that just, I mean, just as far as doing tricks on the turntable, and they can even stand in a room with Mike. Them the only two DJs that I can think of. But back then, as far as a producer, he was at the top of his game. You know, after the Royal Posse album, it was like everything he touched turned to gold. He became the king of bass, you know, this, that, and other. But had I not met him, I would have never met Freddie Lee Williams. Freddie was kind of like an assistant, to the group, you know. But Mike kicked him out the group around the time I auditioned for Freddie was going in the party till, you know. That Mike them called him. So they kicked Freddie out the group. And you know what I'm saying? But later on, when Freddie's the one who introduced me to Dominique and Kent. And you know, and I was hesitant about doing what I did with Dominique and Kent them, because I ain't really think, you know, I had never met drug dealers on their level. Like, I mean, the first time I met Kenny Thames, he dumped out $150,000 out of a brown paper bag sitting on the back of a truck. I remember Fat Freddie walked up with a brown paper bag and handed it to him. And he dumped it out. And it was like 150 grand. And I was like, what? That was the most money I had ever seen at that point. And right then, I turned to Keith, because most of us from the Royal Posse had left, but by then, me, Keith, and Eric, who had then changed his name to Raw G, we had then clicked up. But the primary goal was to convince me, because they were already sold on signing with. But they, Kent them didn't want to do it unless Kent and Dominique them didn't want to do it unless I was involved. So once I saw Kent dump that 150 grand out, I turned the when I first asked Kent, I was like, damn, y'all making money like that? He was like, oh yeah, it's $150,000 a day. Every Monday, we clean. I immediately turned to Keith and told him, oh yeah, we signed it with them. I immediately turned to him and told him, yeah, that's what. And then we did Freeze with Disco, which was gonna blow up. Bartell had then added that, and then the Feds swoop in not too long after that. So, I mean, that was just, and then after that, started doing something with T.I. Song. By that time, he done left Mike, and you know what I'm saying? So we started doing a whole lot of stuff. He did form the group called the Ballers, where, he recorded most of the first, on that album that's on YouTube. But like I was saying, when I was talking to you earlier, even that album right there, man, got well over 1 million views on certain tracks. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So, I mean, we did our thing. I mean, we basically did our thing.
Well, you know what, man? It's been great, man, hearing the actual stories that were behind that Royal Posse, that Magic Mike, that Cheetah Records, man, because like I said, we don't hear it talked about much in that regard. We hear it only through like people we know, but we don't hear that like it's supposed to be heard. Like in any other city, it would be heard. If we were talking about Miami, it'd be heard. If we were talking about New York, it'd be heard. And you guys were like one of the first people that actually started records in Orlando.
Way before. Yeah, I was telling the Burns way before the city of Brooklyn just gave a scratch the key to, like Mike said, man, that situation happened 20 some odd years ago. So I didn't let that stuff go. But Mike, I was telling him what artist, period, hip hop, whatever, done accomplished the things here in Orlando that DJ Magic Mike done accomplished. I mean, you can't name one artist. Mike is a multi-platinum artist, multi-platinum.
Right.
Like I gotta remind people, my project wasn't the only. My project was just the first platinum project, the one that kicked the dough in. After that,
Right.
It was platinum plaque, after gold plaque, after platinum plaque. You know what I'm saying? We was the first one on MTV and BET. We bought BET here on Paramount. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Ain't nobody else done that. Nobody else ain't done that. Nobody else in the history of the city, nobody in the city of Orlando has done that. Nobody, not
Right.
The closest you could probably come is DJ Nasty, and really he tied with Cali. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, really, ain't nobody, because 69 boys and them boys ain't from here. They from Duval County. We the only ones from Orlando that's done put out platinum plaques, million over, and probably the project I'm on probably pushing 2 million. Somebody told me it was 3 million. I ain't, last time I had checked, because records keep selling over time. But the last time I had checked, it was close to 2 million. But somebody told me recently it's like probably like 3 million copies now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just that's the reason why I decided to do this interview, was to remind, because I got an 18-year-old right now trying to duplicate what I did coming out from First Time Swing, platinum.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
the
you
first
should
thing I put out took off, rocket.
And like I told you, you should tell that story because it's not so much about your story, like it's about you, but you gotta think bigger than that. It's about your city. You know, not only does your son need to know it, but everybody in the city need to know your contributions, what doors you open for the city. Meaning, whatever the hell that you did for Orlando, a lot of people benefited from it. All the shit you had to go through as kids, maybe losing money, maybe accepting deals that weren't the greatest deals in the world. You did that, not even realizing you were opening doors for everybody behind you. You did all the grunt work.
Right.
When you talking about that, you in construction right now. Well, you know what that construction work is about. There's the crew that comes in and they set everything up so that the crew that comes right behind them can do their work efficiently. Well, you were the part of the setup crew of Orlando. Exactly. You set everything up so that they can do their job easy. That story needs to be told nonstop. If you in the damn city and y'all hear me right now, that story need to be told nonstop. So don't nobody get anything twisted here that they were the first to do any damn thing. You weren't. You guys are standing on the shoulders of people like yourself, Magic Mike, Beatmaster Clay D, Prince Raheem, City Boys, everybody, man. That DJ Nasty, Khaled, everybody that put their shit on the line to get what they got going on right now, right? So, you know, part of the mantra why I'm doing this show ain't to be just doing no fucking interviews with just anybody. I came back from Kansas City, like I said in the monologue, to talk about the story and not only in which I lived. Everything you're telling me, I remember all that. I was there. Right? When I came back, wasn't nobody talking about us. They're talking about everybody else in the country. They're not talking about the town. And for me, that's taxation without representation. How you gonna talk about everybody else in the world and you ain't talking about the people that open all these fucking doors for y'all? How you not gonna talk about the city that represents all of us? We live here. Yeah, there's a lot of transit people that come here from New York, California, England, whatever. Yeah, maybe they don't have no interest in hearing it. But the people that live here, when you said Motown, let me tell you something, man. I don't hear the word Motown enough because that's something we grew up with. And most of our legends came from Motown. You know, going to that Oak Ridge, that skate world. You know what I'm talking about? You said
idea of how large and the Royal Posse was. I got people on my page from Japan. Brother, you understand? I mean, that's right here from the old, from Rich Height, from Lakeside, District 6. And that's, I mean, thank you, bro.
Right. Yeah, that Wi-Fi is really cutting out right now. Hey, man. Like I said, I want to thank you.
Lagging, to get out here anyway.
I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. Your story is so important for the city, man. I'm glad you decided to change your mind about telling the story because, like I said, it's not just about your kids; it's about my kids too. We, as the older we get, and you know what I'm talking about, you tell stories, and sometimes people be looking at you like you crazy. Like, nah, man, that ain't you. And you realize, like, damn, well, where are my witnesses? They either dead, jail, or whatever. You know what I mean? But this is why these shows are important when we're talking about the history of our city, because the history of our city needs to be talked about. We're not the Bronx. We're not Harlem. We're not Brooklyn. So we gotta act like we're Brooklyn for us. Nobody's looking at us like we're Brooklyn. We gotta look at us like we're Brooklyn or the Bronx. And we got history here. We done did a lot of stuff here, man. That's important. That opened a lot of doors for a lot of other people, man. And I'm so glad you changed your mind and continue to tell that story, man, because that story is important, bro. It's important not only for you, not only for your children, but for the entire city, man. That gives a lot of people green lights in which you didn't think it would be that valuable. Whatever you think is trash is somebody else's treasure, man. So let me tell you something, bro. I thank you. I salute you, bro. You made the right decision. You told the story. And if it's up to me, that story going to be nonstop everywhere, bro. So salute to Orlando. Salute to you, MC Boo. And thank you for joining the Soul Show tonight, man.
Salute, bro.
Salute, my brother. Thank you. Give it up for MC Boo from the Raw Posse, representing the Old Town Sound Ozone. Let's go. Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Thank you guys for joining the Soul Show tonight, man. We just like to say, man, it's been a crazy week of information and things that have been going on. But we like to tell you, man, God bless you. Don't let the world stress you out. Smile, laugh a little bit more, joke a little bit more, take a risk, and don't be afraid to be you. This is the Sound of Orlando show. Let's go!